Good afternoon and welcome to Harlem Sculpture Gardens. We are here today to talk to several artists who will be participating in this outdoor exhibition. We are starting with Michael Poast, and he is developing a sculpture piece that he calls Wisdom. So I wanted to start it off by asking Michael to tell us a little bit about his sculptural practice. How did it begin? And what he's been doing for the last several years. So, Michael, thank you again for coming.
Thank you for inviting me, Savona. Yes, I sculpt steel and use these rigid materials and try to imbue it with feeling and expression. And I like using steel. I feel like it's a very warm metal. There's many different metals I've worked with, stainless steel, and I've done brazing with copper and different things. But I really gravitate towards steel, mild steel, not stainless steel, mild steel. And I make stylized cuts into the I-beams. Usually I use I-beams or channels. These are industrial forms that you can get the steel easily in those shapes. And sometimes I actually glean them from New York City construction sites and talk the fellows in that are working there for a few $100s if they'd give me an I-beam or something. So the materials come from all over, but sometimes I find the already used steel quite fascinating because of the way it's rusted or the marks in it or other things. So I take a cutting torch. I don't know, maybe your viewers don't know much about welding, but you take a cutting torch and I cut into the steel and make stylized cuts. I usually make zigzag cuts for some reason. I like the zigzag form. To me, it releases energy into the material. I heat the I-beam up and I twist it around, physically twisting it with my own strength, because if you heat the steel enough, it becomes quite pliable. Wow. Then I stack, wedge, add, subtract, use different pieces that I've made and start putting them back together. And I try to make forms, I try to transform the material into a poetic form. In other words, using compression and distillation, which is the essence of poetry. And what I mean by that is taking the materials and reconstructing or constructing a piece out of it, and yet always trying to get the unified form that expresses a poetic feeling. To me, the wisdom that this piece was named has to do with the meaning of wisdom, which actually it's a power of knowing truth and right.
Wow.
And following that through action.
That is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Therefore, as I'm constructing the piece, sometimes, which is sort of funny, is that I can be trying to compress the form and pull it together, and it becomes more expansive.
Interesting.
Yeah, that can take both ways.
Well, I love your theme now that I fully understand it, hearing directly from you, because this goes very well with our overall theme for Harlem Sculpture Gardens, and that's to deal with the history of Harlem, culturally, socially. And so what you're talking about deals with that social justice history that began from the 1910s.
Oh, yes, definitely.
This is really fabulous, and I like the way how you talk about that compression, because it was all these different groups of people that came from the South, from the Caribbean, from the Latin Caribbean, and coming together and mashing up and forming a new community where they could work together and strive for social change in this country. So this is fabulous. I'm very impressed with what you do. And you're also a professor, too, correct?
I'm a professor, and I don't know if you know this. I don't know if we've ever even discussed this, but I also have a classical music background.
Really?
And I compose music. I have developed a unique notation system using color, actually. So I feel like, in a way, I bring that performance aspect to my work with the intensity of the forms working together. And when I mean that, I mean the cut shapes, and usually I have negative spaces in between that form a whole. So it activates the negative space as well as the positive space. And I might add, it activates the space around the sculpture. That's what's so interesting to me about public art, is putting it in all kinds of different sites and seeing how the piece actually activates the site.
Well, Michael, I just want to say thank you so very much for coming and sharing information about your practice, but also the sculpture wisdom. And we look forward to seeing that this spring. And your piece will be at Jackie Robinson Park. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.